precisely on what we had to watch. They broke the fourth wall. The boundary between reality and fiction has been breached.
Bon voyage.
You sure you want to keep that thing lying around?
What could happen?
Hi, welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?
Yeah, can I get the, chicken fries, please?
I'm sorry, sir. We're currently out of the chicken fries. Sir? Sir?
Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Do it!
I admit you're stronger than I expected, but this isn't even my final form. Telebird, now! Oh, crap. Okay, what's this button do? Hello, I'm Neige, and this is what we had to watch. Let's talk about Dragonball Evolution. Throughout the hallowed halls of geekdom are certain names everyone's expected to know. Batman, Star Trek, Dragon Ball. That's it, there's literally nothing else. Following the adventures of a spiky-haired boy named Goku, Dragon Ball and its sequel series Dragon Ball Z are two of the most celebrated anime series in the history of the medium. A worldwide staple of children's entertainment, teaching entire generations that you can solve literally all of your problems if you just scream long enough. And in 2009, the latest victim of the Hollywood cash grab, as Fox took it upon themselves to turn this beloved franchise into a 90-minute action cliché that missed the point of the source material entirely, thus alienating the very fanbase it was intended to profit off of. So is it weird that I don't hate this movie? Get back up here! I don't hate Dragon Ball Evolution, because I am fascinated with Dragon Ball Evolution. Sure, it isn't great, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to like about it. I know plenty of people would disagree with that statement, and if you're expecting this review just to be me complaining about how this movie murdered my innocence or something, then I'm sorry to say this video is not for you. But if you can turn off your nostalgia goggles long enough to indulge me, then I invite you to join me as I attempt to answer a question more eternal than the mighty dragon Shenron himself: what were they thinking? High School Hero, the origin of White Goku. I want to make it clear that I'm not interested in figuring out why this movie got made. Rather, I'm more interested in why it got made this way. So let's just assume this wasn't a terrible idea from the outset and move on to the biggest complaint against it. It deviates from the source material. Fans of the original will hold any adaptation to this standard. Whether it's the giant squid from Watchmen or the position James Potter played on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, people assume that different equals bad. And while I'm not saying that criticism is completely invalid, it's also important to remember that these kind of changes are necessary. Dragon Ball's potential to be a great movie is obvious. It offers iconic characters and a richly developed world that can easily fill 90 minutes. But while there may be overlap in the conventions of film, literature, video games, and comic books, certain elements still have to be massaged when moving from one medium to another. In many cases, this means changing the order of plot points or excluding characters and subplots. In this case, it means stripping the original for parts and adding things back in when it's convenient. Dragon Ball Evolution has the same skeleton as the original series. There are 7 mystical Dragon Balls that, when assembled, will grant whoever finds them one perfect wish. An evil warlord named Piccolo wants them for his own purposes, so it's up to Goku and friends to stop him. But all the blood and meat and organs of the anime have been replaced with the tropes of an American action movie. This isn't the world of Dragon Ball, it's the world of later seasons Dragon Ball Z. You know, when everything was more civilized and all the animal people just sort of went away. DBZ has always been the more popular series in the US. It's where we get the image of spiky-haired badasses flexing at each other until one of them explodes. And the greater emphasis on action lends itself better to a 90-minute movie because, simply put, the world of Dragon Ball is too weird. It's charming, imaginative, and perfect for anime, but it's weird. It's got dinosaurs and monkey kids and it's ruled by a dog! And all of this works because the original purpose of the Dragon Balls from a story perspective was to showcase the different people and places you can see on a treasure hunt. But in DBZ, that changed. The Dragon Balls just became a device to lure in new, more powerful opponents for Goku to fight. Until after the Frieza saga, at which point they just became a reset button. In a more faithful adaptation, there might have been more room for dinosaurs and shape-shifting pigs. But this movie's about the fights. There's no time for exploring, we gotta watch Trunks power up for 8 episodes. And think about it, if you're an 8-year-old kid hopped up on Pixie Sticks, which show would you rather watch? This? This week on Dragon Ball Z, Tien Shinhan gets his arm cut off and Chaozu explodes! Or this? This week on Dragon Ball, they meet a turtle. He talks. The obvious counter-argument here is that sci-fi and fantasy thrive in Western cinema. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, one of the biggest movies of 2014 had a space ant and a gun-toting raccoon. How is Dragon Ball any different? Because the source of most of Dragon Ball's weirdness is holistic. This is a version of Earth that resembles ours in many ways, but is also distinctly different. And there's no overarching concept like science or magic to explain why, it's just the way things are. Meanwhile, the world of Dragon Ball Z is, and I use this term very loosely, more believable. Outside of talking animals and energy blasts, everything that makes the world different comes from an external source. Frieza and the Saiyans, outer space. Cell and the androids, mad science. Majin Buu, magic. Bizarre as some of these concepts may be, they all carry a distinct otherness that makes them easier to digest, because they're not of the world as we know it. It's easy for audiences to accept aliens and futuristic technology, but it's not as easy to accept a bunch of pterodactyls flying around just because Akira Toriyama wanted them there. Goku himself is another hard sell, mostly because he's a kid, and action movies don't normally focus on kids. When they do, the results can be... Yippee! The obvious solution there is to make Goku older, but that leaves another issue. Goku isn't a relatable protagonist. He's Japanese Superman and goes completely beyond what we as human beings are capable of. He overcomes every obstacle he faces, even death. He's a goofy dude who only cares about fighting and food and doesn't know how the world works. Get a job! This is all part of what made him such a memorable character in the first place, but Hollywood executives don't care about that kind of crap.
Dragon Dance Revolution, eh? This is that cartoon, right?
Not exactly. It's a Japanese anime with a very devoted fan base.
Cartoon! Gotcha! You know who likes cartoons? Kids! You know what else kids like? Teenagers. I said we Smallville this sucker. Set it in high school, make him a sexy misfit.
Are you talking about Spider-Man?
Sure, that was us, right?
No, that was Sony. We did X-Men.
Then no! It's completely different.
How is it different?
We make him the chosen one. Case dismissed.
That's not even a joke. This movie is Spider-Man. It begins with the death of a father figure and ends with a showdown against a flying green monster man. It also takes the original Goku, a character known for his carefree nature and love of a challenge, and makes him horny. Cause if a male lead doesn't have a sex drive motivating half of his decisions, there's clearly something wrong with him.
My grandpa said everything will be explained to me when I turn 18.
Meaning everything I'm thinking about right now is probably illegal. But they did get a few things right, in that he has spiky hair, likes food, and can't drive. Come to think of it, I'm kinda surprised they don't reference the episode where Goku goes for his driver's license. Yeah, that happened. I know everyone hates the fact that they made Goku a high school student, but where else were they gonna put him? The inciting incident of a movie is supposed to propel the protagonist out of the ordinary world and into an adventure, so wherever he starts off should be in stark contrast to where he ends up. Even in a fantasy world, some sense of dissatisfaction with the world as it is allows the protagonist to throw himself more fully into the new world. But Dragon Ball doesn't have that. Goku only goes with Bulma because he's got nothing better to do, and there's nothing at stake for him. But in the movie, he's an outcast. Of course, Goku doesn't belong in high school, that's why he leaves. He's gotta go fight Piccolo and rock the dragon! It's the same reason Bilbo Baggins doesn't stay in the Shire. Life's boring, dude's gotta go rock the dragon! Aragon's gotta rock the dragon! Harry Potter's gotta rock the dragon! And then do the hippogriff. And sure, anime Goku never would have cared about fitting in, but this isn't anime Goku. This is white Goku. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to talk about the fact that they cast a white actor, aren't I? Hollywood's racist. Everything changes. Dragon Ball's Evolution. If you watch the cast interviews leading up to DBE's release, you'll notice the same disclaimer keeps popping up. That this movie was in no way intended to be an uncompromising representation of Akira Toriyama's vision. Toriyama himself even encouraged fans to look at this movie as just another take, before seeing it and publicly stating that it sucks. It's the same iconic characters and mythology presented in a different package. A very cheap, lazy package that got delivered at a time of year when no one's going to the movies anyway. This movie may suck, but it sucks in a generally harmless way. It's really not worth getting worked up over. If you're one of the people out there who insists that this movie ruined your childhood, no it didn't. This isn't Star Wars. It's not like the only version of Dragon Ball is some special edition DVD with Ghost Justin Chatwin at the end. This is just an alternate universe where everything gets appropriated to fit Western storytelling conventions. Goku is our young hero, Chi-Chi is the love interest, Roshi is the mentor, Bulma does machines. And by that, I mean she chimes in whenever the Dragon Radar decides it's time to move the plot forward.
Dragon Ball's close.
All that's missing is some comic relief, and what better fan-favorite character to fill that role than Yamcha? Huh. As for the condensed story, the structure is already there. We need to stop the bad guy from doing the thing. At this point, the movie is a race to see who can find the Dragon Balls first. But there has to be a greater sense of urgency to it, so they throw in a doomsday clock.
We have to find the Dragon Balls before the eclipse.
But all that clock is counting down to is a fist fight, and that's not interesting enough, so they go to the source material for a twist. Because audiences love twists. Goku isn't just some kid who can turn into a monkey. That would be stupid! No, he can turn into a monkey because he's really Ozaru, Piccolo's henchman from 2,000 years ago, with the power to turn into a tiny, fragile infant and not age, apparently. But that's still not interesting enough. We need a prophecy, so it seems like this legendary final battle was meant to happen. Screw character motivation, we got destiny, bitches!
7 Dragon Balls must be found, for all men's fate will be bound.
Okay, that's not a prophecy, that's a set of instructions.
It's a nursery rhyme.
This most closely resembles Dragon Ball Season 4. Rather than waste time with more comedic villains like Emperor Pilaf, we go straight for Piccolo, the biggest baddie of the series. Season 4 also kicks off with a much stronger inciting incident as Goku is called to action by the death of a loved one. In the show, it's some other guy and we'll talk about him later, but in the movie, it's Grandpa Gohan. And it's one of the smartest decisions they made in this adaptation. First of all, it evokes sympathy for the protagonist. In the original series, Goku's grandpa is dead to begin with, and it's not until Bulma shows up and easily manipulates him to serve her own needs that the adventure begins. It's a charming character moment, but it also runs the risk of making Goku look stupid.
I'm gonna go find us some food. Do you like bacon?
What are you, brain dead?
Okay, more stupid. Which would have suited Season 1 just fine, but not Season 4 when this mother effer shows up and starts axing people. Second, it gives Goku a personal investment in the quest. It's his fight, he has to finish it. Third, it gives Goku an emotional anchor that isn't primarily sexual. If he was only doing this to get laid, then every non-bro in the audience would think he's a creep. But he's not a creep, he loves his grandpa and they have a good relationship. If you ignore the fact that Goku totally ditches his grandpa just so he can spend the night ogling Chi-Chi's Chi-Chis. It adds a more relatable aspect to his arc, which is really important when part of that arc involves harnessing the power of your inner monkey demon to fight evil. Unless that actually happened to you, in which case I imagine the part about the monkey demon really hits home. I'm not necessarily defending these changes, nor do I think that this much thought actually went into them. I'm just trying to explain the mindset behind them. That mindset being...
Piggy, 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 piggy!
What kind of acid trip is this?
The balls are inert. Why this movie sucks. I'm not expecting anyone to come out of this video singing Dragon Ball Evolution's praises. I know it's a mess, I know it's an objectively terrible film, but if there's one thing I hope you consider, it's that the quality of an adaptation does not solely rely on how closely it adheres to the source material. Every movie runs the same risk of being awful, be it the work of a sincere fan.
I don't know what's going on with me and the critics of the United States, I gotta tell you.
They just don't get you.
They've never got me, and it's getting worse.
Or some asshole with a hard-on for carnage.
Done doing robots. I'm gonna shoot myself if I should do another robot.
Dragon Ball is no different. Sure, the potential for a live-action adaptation that's both good and faithful is there, but there's also the chance it could turn out like this. Yeah, I don't care if they cast Asian actors. If you're gonna tell me that this is any better than this, shut up. Dragon Ball Evolution doesn't suck for making changes, it sucks because its changes are poorly executed. Underlying the differences is a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes this series so great. But if you look past the whitewashing, the crappy acting, the god-awful editing, you can see a glimpse, just the tiniest glimpse, of a decent action comedy. For all this movie cuts out, it certainly doesn't skimp on fight scenes. And it even provides some cool visuals. I like the saturated colors, I like that the Dragon Balls glow brighter than the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. I even like the cheap effects. The low-budget cartoony style harkens back to the effects of Mortal Kombat. And I freaking love that movie. And you can disagree with me on this, but it's funny. Not every joke lands, but there's still gags in here that you can tell were written with the fans in mind, and they work. But like I said, these are only glimpses. These are still poorly cast actors working under a director who doesn't know what he's doing, taking notes from studio executives who don't know what they have, resulting in versions of these characters that are just wrong. Goku is only a relatable protagonist because they made him a hollow shell with no distinct personality, just spiky hair and superpowers. And in making Goku a boring Peter Parker, they also made Chi-Chi into a bland, vaguely sociopathic Mary Jane. At the start of the movie, she's dating some a-hole who tries to murder Goku not once, but twice, then quickly abandons all regard for said murderous a-hole when he and his murderous a-hole friends get tricked into maiming each other by Ninja Boy. And they try to justify it by throwing in this half-assed peer pressure angle.
Nobody at home knows this, but I'm a fighter too. They just wouldn't understand.
Yeah, cause macho douchebags aren't into MMA or anything.
Nobody can know my secret. That's why I participate in tournaments with thousands of spectators.
They couldn't even get Yamcha right, and there wasn't that much to get right.
I want what no riches in the world can buy. Don't you see that one day I'd like to get married?
Let's take a look at the movie version of that, shall we?
So after we get to 7 Dragon Balls, how soon can I expect some profit?
Then again, I don't think too many people who saw this movie threw fits over Yamcha. They didn't really ruin him any more than Dragon Ball Z already did. The only reason he's here is to give Bulma something else to do, and Bulma's probably the one character who doesn't get completely screwed. She's not a perfect representation either, because now instead of the spunky, high-maintenance go-getter, we have cynical naysayer with guns. Remember that one scene in the pilot where she shoots Goku? That's Bulma! But I'm kind of okay with that because half of what she did in the original series was complain and get sexually harassed by literally every guy in the series. Even the talking pig.
How's this, Bulma? Put me on, then only one of us has to walk.
It's uncomfortable. But because this movie has the decency to not contrive a scenario in which the female lead is forced to wear a kinky bunny suit, all that's really left for her to do is drive. Until Yamcha shows up and he starts to drive. But Bulma never loses agency. She's always ready to rush in guns blazing, and they still service that big fat brain of hers with my favorite moment in the entire movie. I don't care that it doesn't work, I don't care that it's sloppily edited, trying to crush your enemies with a motorcycle is freaking hardcore! Like I said, in this perfect storm of executive meddling and incompetence, there are still some good ideas. Clever fight choreography, decent jokes, something resembling a vision. But they're dispersed among too many weak links, and the weakest link by far is the villain. There's a reason I've avoided talking about Piccolo until now. He's the worst part of the movie. He has the power to crush a house with his mind, but still needs eyeshadow here to do his bidding. He was imprisoned for thousands of years, but now he's not. Now he wants the Dragon Ball so he can rule the world. Or destroy the world, the movie can't seem to make up its mind. So we have a villain with inconsistent powers, a lousy backstory, and no motivation, who looks like a hairless Grinch and doesn't even do anything until the last third of the movie. The final fight is built up like the resolution of a long-standing grudge, but Goku and Piccolo haven't even seen each other until this point. How intense can that conflict be when one doesn't even know what the other looks like?
Are you Piccolo?
And it doesn't help that it's the worst fight in the movie. Despite some really bad editing, most of the martial arts sequences manage to be decent. Then they start throwing energy blasts around, and suddenly no one knows what they're doing. Yeah, that's great, James. Just keep posing with your arms at your sides. We'll just add the choreography in post. Now, I do think James Marsters wanted to do Piccolo justice. During the media blitz, he kept talking about this backstory that obviously didn't survive the rewrites, but he was at least trying to make Piccolo more than just ripped Shrek.
When I went into prison, I was a lot younger. I get out of prison, look in that mirror for the first time, and I'm old and decrepit, and someone has stolen my youth. And I can completely understand why Piccolo would turn so destructive.
He could have been bringing that energy to every take, but you could never tell because they give him nothing to work with, except in one scene toward the end.
Imagine being shackled so tightly that every atom in your body stood compacted. That was my hell.
That's a cool monologue, and I wish the movie would have slowed down every once in a while to give us more stuff like that. Instead of the crappy CGI prologue, they should have had a scene where Mai sets Piccolo free. It would have given us some context for their relationship, and it also would have explained how Piccolo got out. Yeah, notice they never explain why Piccolo is suddenly not trapped in a rice cooker anymore. When he finally does stop to explain himself, he should be monologuing to Goku. This movie is already ripping off Spider-Man, so own it. Add a scene in the middle where Goku tries to take on Piccolo and gets the crap eaten out of him.
Part of the reason the final fight is so underwhelming is because we have no concept of the power disparity between the combatants. We see Piccolo blow a ton of crap up, but we never see Goku lose. Unless you count the scene where Mai shoots him, but you shouldn't, because even at his most powerful, Goku isn't immune to lasers. Point is, without seeing Goku actually struggle, there's no clear reason for why he needs to get stronger. Especially when the movie goes the whole chosen one, embrace your destiny, be a monkey king route anyway. If we see him get his ass kicked, it gives us a better idea of the stakes.
The one guy who could save the world couldn't even lay a scratch on the Goblin Space King. We're boned.
They could even foreshadow the Ozaru plot twist with Piccolo controlling Goku's mind or something. While the rest of the cast tries to deal, Piccolo monologues to a chained-up Justin Chatwin. A few other tweaks, and this version of Piccolo could have worked. A lot of what this movie sets out to do could have worked.
And what's most frustrating is that so many of this movie's problems could have been solved by one simple change.
Last chance for redemption. The missing piece. Krillin. Beyond budget and casting, 90% of this movie's problems could have been solved by Krillin. His mere presence would have fixed Goku being the most well-adjusted social outcast ever. I mean, he apparently shops at the same Gap that everybody else does, but for some reason, everyone hates him. And there's no way some kid in his teens who gets bullied on a daily basis would be this okay with life. Unless he had someone he could relate to. A Harry Osborn to Goku's Peter Parker. Jump ahead a bit, and Roshi takes both of them on as students. Goku responds well to the training, while Krillin has some trouble getting the hang of it. He's never been as strong as Goku, so this gives him something to work towards. A goal he never achieves, because at the halfway point, he has to die. It's the unspoken rule of Dragon Ball, Krillin has to die. So in that added fight scene where Piccolo is owning Goku's shiz, have Krillin try to save him. Maybe it's the one time he pulls off the Kamehameha, or even the Destructo Disc.
Oh wait, sorry, the...
But it's not enough, and Piccolo straight up wastes him. Suddenly, Krillin is the Agent Coulson of this movie. He is the reason everybody rallies for the final battle. Even Yamcha, who probably wouldn't need to be in the movie anymore, but he didn't really need to be in the movie in the first place. We now have an overabundance of on-screen motivation deaths, but we solve that by getting rid of Grandpa Gohan. Randall Duck Kim is the coolest grandpa ever, and I want him in my life, but he didn't really need to be here. I do like how they used Gohan's death as an inciting incident, but it begs the question of why Goku would use his one wish to bring back a guy he's known for a week rather than the guy who, you know, raised him. And sure, there was never a limit on how many people the Dragon Balls could bring back at a time, but in a movie, the power to give life needs to be a bit more special. But hey, if two main characters die and you can only bring one of them back, that's just another reason to find the Dragon Balls all over again. In the sequel they apparently thought was gonna happen.
Just look at this exciting post-credits teaser!
Eat your heart out, Thanos. Maybe I'm alone in thinking this turd could have been polished. Fans hated it, it didn't make any money. It's a textbook example of a commercial and critical flop. But when I'm in a room full of geeks and people cover their ears at the mere mention of this movie's name, I don't laugh. I get bummed out. As a culture, we're overly protective of the things we loved as kids. And I get why. These are the stories we latched onto during our formative years. Hence the phrase, "they ruined my childhood." But I don't like seeing ideas rejected in the name of my childhood. There's a number of reasons a movie can be bad, but how many times have you heard someone rail against an adaptation simply because it wasn't a one-to-one representation of the book? That is such a useless lens through which to view movies like these. Changes shouldn't be measured by their difference, they should be measured by their potential. Or lack thereof. And keep in mind, just like Dragon Ball Z with its many, many flaws might be your childhood, Dragon Ball Evolution might be someone else's. And we shouldn't deny people the right to enjoy the schlock they loved as kids, so long as it's not actively contributing to the erosion of modern society. So next time you hear Ben Affleck is playing Batman or Disney wants to remake Ghost in the Shell, take a breath and consider the possibilities. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. There's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't mean the show or comic you fell in love with is any different. Even if a beloved franchise is made into a genuinely awful movie, great characters and stories will endure.
In short, get over it, you bunch of nerds.
Hey Neige, what does a scouter say about my power level?
4.
4,000?
Nope, just 4.
Oh.